welcome back to All for United WFC, something a little bit different today as we lead up to what most people are calling a title deciding game. Bit early for that, in my opinion. We've got a couple of games still against the other teams in and around us, but we thought we'd do something a little bit different. You notice there's three of us, because me and Rob, you notice if you watch the WSL 2022 review, that went on for quite some time debating players who will put in that team of the year. So we thought we'd get a neutral perspective. So thanks for joining us as well, David. On this one as well. Oh, not going to waste any time on it. We're going to have 20, 25, 30 minutes, however long this takes, and we're going to bash it out. Combined 11. Obviously, complete blank canvas at the moment. But I think we'll start with the players I think we're all going to agree on, because I think there's a few that I think are probably guaranteed, and there's going to be a few others that are probably going to need some debates over. So I'll start with, I think is going to be the easy one. Is there any question marks over the goalkeeper? Or are we all saying Mary Earps for this one?
I think certainly this season you've got to say Earps. I think overall, like at their absolute peak of powers, I think Berger's a better goalkeeper, but I don't think she's been at her best this season. And
I'd agree. I'd agree. Mary Earps.
See, that was a nice easy one. I thought I'd pick that one first because I thought that's going to be an easy one. So yeah, I should have explained this at the start. But yeah, we are basing this off current form from this season, so how the players are playing up to now, just from this season. So obviously, you can't pick a player from based off their last season's form or Euros form and things like that. It's purely this season going into this.
I'm also just assuming we're also ruling out any players that are currently injured and not going to be available for the weekend.
Yeah, so fit and on form players are what we're going for on this one. I'll slot it over to player 5 then, because again, I think this is going to be unanimous, I'd hope, unless someone's going to throw another alternative name out there. But are we going for Honor on the right-hand side? Or is there going to be another shout at right back?
I don't think there's a real... I don't think there's a, I think Eve Perisset is a very good footballer, but I don't think she's played enough this season to be challenging. Whereas with Honor, basically, when Honor doesn't play for you, you look pretty dreadful, in all honesty.
Yeah, completely agreed. I go with Honor.
Well, we didn't have Honor the last time we faced you, and we know how that went at LSV. Yeah. So obviously she is back, and well, she has been back for a while, but she's ready for this game as well. So that's the easy two from a United point of view out of the way. From what I feel like I'm going to have to fight for a couple of the others in some of the other spots. The two centre halves. Now, me and Rob were talking about this a little bit last night. This is where it could get interesting, because obviously the two United centre backs I could fight for is obviously Millie Turner and Letitia. There's obviously some other players that have played centre back, but I don't think they get in this conversation. Obviously, you've got Millie Bright from a Chelsea point of view. There's a couple of other good, Buchanan maybe from a Chelsea point of view as well. Eriksson could obviously play there as well, and obviously this could feed into left back as well, because we could do something a little bit funky with the left hand side if we stuck Letitia out on the left, even though she's not played there this season. We could do that as well. So I'll just come to, in fact, David, I'll come to you first in terms of your two. Who would you pick as your kind of centre back pairing, or are you stuck on a few names at the moment?
I would tell you one person I would rule out immediately, and that's Kadisha Buchanan, because I don't think that she's quite adjusted to the levels that the WSL requires at the minute. I mean, you look at the opening match against Liverpool, she made mistakes there. She obviously got away with a solid penalty shout in the cup final. There's just little bits here and there that I think she isn't quite at the level she needs to be. So I'd rule her out at the minute. I would put Millie Bright in there as probably one of them, just because of her ability to play out from the back in a variety of ways. So she gives you options when moving the ball out from the back. And I don't know. I do like Maya Letitia, to be honest. And I think actually she's really done very well since she moved to Manchester United. So maybe a combination of Bright and Letitia.
I mean, Rob, that's kind of the angle that we were speaking about last night. But obviously, I mentioned it before, Letitia on the left. Is there anyone else that you, from a Chelsea point of view, you'd throw in at centre back?
I mean, just in terms of the general quality she hasn't played much this season, but when she's played, Jess Carter's been phenomenal. I don't think she's had a poor game this season, in all honesty, when she has played. And one of the biggest, I suppose, question marks for me this season has been moving from that back three back to the back four has meant that Carter's seen her minutes reduced. But we look infinitely better from a defensive point of view when she's in there, She reads the game so well, and her passing ability has really, really improved. I think she's also got that real burst of pace that makes her very difficult to go around. And Lauren Hemp, when Lauren Hemp is saying she's the hardest player she's come up against in WSL, and I think all of us would agree there are very few wingers better than Lauren Hemp when she's on form. I think that's the pedigree. I think you probably, for me, the final three is any combination of Bright, Carter, and Laetitia, depending on whether you put Maya at left back or at centre back. But I think for me, Jess Carter's got to be somewhere in there, and also based on the fact that how far she's come over, I think, the last 12 months as a player.
Jess Carter's certainly a shout. I think this really does. I think we're going to have to do this as three players, because I think it does depend on who we stick on the left. Because obviously, a player that Chelsea fans will obviously know well is obviously Hannah Blundell. She's obviously been on great form for us this season. Yeah. Whether you'd stick her in a combined 11 this season, that's obviously up for debate now. So I think it does depend, because I think Laetitia has to go in somewhere, and I think Bright has to go in somewhere. So I think that's maybe your two. But then it depends on what we do on the left-hand side in terms of if we're sticking Laetitia out there, even though she's not played there this season. She has played on the right, I think, once in a Conti game. Or whether we stuck Honor to the other side and we stuck Laetitia at right back. That's probably the more feasible option if you're putting Maya at full-back.
I would say in that case then put Jess at left back, because she's played at left back and at full back more, and she can play both those sides more regularly.
I would go, if I was doing it, I'd go with Hannah Blundell at left back in this team that we're building, purely because I think if you've got Honor Battier, who's obviously really good at delivering balls into the box and gets assists and crosses and things like that, you need a left back to sort of balance that out, who's going to make runs into the box. And I think out of the options that you've got, Carter, Neve Charles, Blundell, I think Blundell's the best at doing that. She's got that goal-scoring touch and that ability to cut inside. So for me, I think if you go on.
I will just counter this on a point in that, having watched both of them, the player on the left-hand side, who I think I know, that's going to be one of the more contested ones of them, but there's someone who really likes staying forward, whoever you put in that position. You need that more defensive fullback in there. Whereas the player on the right, I think as I'm pretty sure we're going to agree on it, whether, Connor likes it or not. That player, I think you're willing to give the freedom to. But on the left-hand side, the player will stay forward naturally. And I think you need that defensive. And just talking from a balance point of view, having also seen both of them, and this is no slight to Hannah Blundell, I think Carter's a better all-round footballer. And I think, I said this at the time, this was partly why Blundell left Chelsea, because of the fact that there were better options in the place. I would always be inclined to make an argument for Neve Charles, although she has struggled in big games, and that's, I think, the big thing that goes against her. But there are some games she's played left back and she's played phenomenally. And the big sort of question for me now is actually, what is her best position? I think that's increasingly becoming hard to answer, but that's its own probably sort of point of view. But yeah, I would think it would be very unfair, based on, even though she's seen limited minutes this season, not have Carter somewhere in there, because when she's played, she's been phenomenal.
I agree with you on Charles. I think she's actually had a really, really positive season, taking a lot of steps forward. Yes, I agree. She hasn't really, she's struggled in some of the big games, but I think she's come on a lot since the start of the season, and certainly seems to be winning a lot more defensive duels overall than she has previously, and certainly seems to be much more comfortable in that left back role. But I still think, out of all the options, I'd still go with Blundell. Just because I think you've got that balance then between, you've got a goal scorer and you've got a cross. Somebody's going to put the crosses in.
I will say this. I'm happy to go with it, but I'll say at some point on Sunday, I guarantee you, Blundell will be caught out of position by Lauren James, and it will lead to Chelsea scoring.
Probably
because of how far Blundell gets up the pitch. We've seen this before, and this was one of the issues why Blundell did struggle for consistent starts towards the end of her Chelsea career. She has what I like to call the Ben Chilwell gene, in that she's so often at times so focused on being forward and being that attacking outlet and that attacking point, she does forget to track back. And Chilwell's got a lot better at it, especially in the wing-back role. He's through with it. I think if you play Blundell as the wing-back, that's probably her best role, because I think she's better offensively than defensively. But I can guarantee you that'll happen at some point on.
I was going to say, based off what you're saying, Rob, it depends who's on that left-hand side. Should we get the two centre-backs? Are we going Bright and Letizia? I think, is that pretty much settled on those two?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Right, are we going Bright on the left side, Letizia on the right?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think Maya can play either side. I think Bright, has played it both sides at the moment. I think you can dovetail them.
I might come back to player 4 because I think it depends on who. I mean, in fact, let's do this slightly differently. Who else do we think is an absolute shoe-in that we're all going to agree on? I think Sam Kerr is probably another shout that we're probably all going to say. Although I will caveat that by saying in the WSL, Russo is, I think, 3 goals ahead of her or 2 goals ahead of her. So there is that argument.
I will caveat that by saying she's had 2 more games to do it in. And also, what I will say in Kerr's defence is what people are calling a bad season for Sam Kerr, I think is better than anything Alessia Russo's ever achieved in what people are saying is her best season. And that's no slight on Alessia Russo as a player. I think she's phenomenal. But I think that if you're talking about a combined 11 on pure quality, then I find it very, very, very hard for you to make an argument to leave Sam Kerr out.
I think it depends on how you're going to play, because for me, Russo's better in a team that looks to move the ball. I think she's a bit more mobile than Sam Kerr. Sam Kerr's a bit more of an out-and-out striker. She's that target player. She can drop back, and we have seen her drop back. I'm not saying she doesn't, but I feel like she's a better player when you need to target someone, a bit like we saw in the League Cup final when Chelsea started going a bit more direct towards her. Russo,
but then that contradicts exactly what you said about getting 2 fullbacks in the box that are going to be crossing it into the box. Because that if there's one player you want in the box at the back post for the tap-in.
To be honest, I think both of them are good at tap-ins. I mean, we saw against Leicester, Russo's very good. I mean, as we all know, she's very good in the goal area, but she's got that goal scoring tick. So Sam Kerr, I don't know.
I was going to say, this front 3 for me is going to be the toughest, because I think on the right-hand side, I think it's probably going to be James. I think she's had a phenomenal season. From the bits I've seen of Chelsea this season, it's going to be hard to fight for any United.
Through gritted teeth.
I know, it's going to be hard for me. I really want to, but I'm thinking the players we've had on the right, Thomas, Garcia, Paris, as much as I like all of them, I don't think any of them have been on James's level. So I think on that right side, it's going to have to be James.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I suggest we change the formation to having a number 10. Because I think you could make a very good argument that Russo, a lot of the time, even though she is your 9, she plays in that deeper role and she plays in behind she occupies those spaces. And I would also make the argument that James plays a similar role for us. I also think for the central midfielders, there's more of there's one person I would consider to be an absolute shoo-in. There's one I think you will consider to be an absolute shoo-in. And I think we can probably get the balance there. And then I would say, I think you can make a good argument for Russo in. I would say if she played more, I would make a very strong case for Jelena Shankovic in that number 10 role, because every time Shankovic has played, she's been phenomenal, but we haven't seen enough of her in the WSL. I'm pretty confident, and I'll stake my house on it now, that next season, if she plays consistently, she will be, without a doubt, a contender for the player of the season because of what a good footballer she is, and the way she does it. But we haven't seen enough of her. Same reason I'm ruling out Kirby and Harder for that number 10 role. And my controversial opinion, as I said to you yesterday, and although I know the numbers say otherwise, I think Ella Toon's had a poor season. And I know, the numbers say, I think it's 3 goals and 7 assists. But I've watched a lot of Toon at various points this year, and I don't think she's having the impact that you expect from her. I think she's probably the player in your side that if you look at a Euros hangover the most, she's the player having that the most on your side.
That's an interesting opinion.
Oh, go on, David.
Well, I actually don't think she's doing too badly overall, because I have seen she's making the passes you'd expect her to make. She's breaking through lines that you'd expect her to break. She is finding teammates around the pitch, and whenever I've watched her, she's demonstrated a good awareness of what's going on around the pitch. She's been able to find teammates and create chances. I think maybe it's because we're used to seeing her scoring a lot more goals than she is. But I don't know, just my personal opinion, when I've watched her, I think she's still being able to find those spaces and break through lines and get in the same areas that she was before.
I can see that argument. I think my big thing is that, and again, I'd hate player comparisons, but at the beginning of the season, I had a lot of people comparing her to Frank Kirby. And like, if she's going to be compared to Fran Kirby, she needs to be putting up similar numbers to goals and assists to what Fran Kirby is doing. And bear in mind, Kirby's been injured a lot this season. But if she's fully fit, you can count on a minimum 10 goals and 10 assists from Fran Kirby in the league. You know, that's just a fact. We've seen it year after year.
I agree with that.
And that's why I think, you know, from my perspective with Tuna, I think, you know, she will come through it, and I think it will probably make her a better all-round player. But I think this season hasn't been her finest season, and I think it's been covered by the fact that there have been additional goal-scoring outlets. Whereas last year, if it wasn't, you know, Tuna or Russo, you pretty much didn't score. And I think that's the big thing this year that has been, you know, different, which is why you got a more credible title challenge, I think.
I think
I can see that. I can agree with that.
That's definitely the case in terms of different scorers. I think we have got one of the highest in terms of different goal scorers in the WSL this season or something like that. This is where it's going to get really tricky because, Rob, you mentioned in the midfield, I just want to get a couple more names on this list and then we can really start debating some of the ones that we're stuck on. You said that there was a shoe-in midfield from United and from Chelsea. Who are the two that you're thinking of for those kind of two midfield slots?
I think probably either Zellum or Ladd. I think you can make very strong cases for one of them, but I think they're too similar in their style of play when you pair them with Erin Cuthbert. Because Chelsea's biggest thing is when Erin Cuthbert's not on form, and she wasn't in the Conti Cup game the other day, Chelsea tend to lose matches. And when she is on form, Chelsea tend to win matches. And I said this to you last year in that game against you in the league at the end of the season. The main reason why Chelsea was still in that first half was because Erin Cuthbert dragged them up by the bootstraps and kept them in it. And, you know, I think I find it very, very hard. Anyone who argues to me, and I've had various conversations with people who said, you know, Chelsea need to take Cuthbert out. She's too dynamic. She works, you know, she runs too much to minimal output. But it's one of those situations, I compare it a bit to Leah Walty at Arsenal. You don't really notice what they're doing and how good they are until they're out the team.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, from a United point of view, yeah, it's lads. The difficulty I'm going to find with this is I think, well, no, I'm pretty confident one of Tuna or Russo are missing out in this because if you're putting, I think Cuthbert I'd agree with. I think she's got to go in. So if you're doing that, that means it's Russo or Kerr, unless you're dropping Russo back. But if you're dropping Russo back, that means Tune's not got a shout. And if we're going Ladd or Zellum, which I think is good shouts as well, because you know those two have been solid in midfield all season. If you're going for one of those two, again, that's no space for Ella Toone either. So
let me just ask Rob a question on Erin Cuthbert, because I'm not disagreeing. She shouldn't be in. I'm just going to say, if you were the Chelsea coach at this point in time, and you had to say to Erin Cuthbert, either focus on playing balls forward or focus on protecting the defence and breaking up phases of play from the opponents, in this case, obviously United. If you had to choose one or the other, she can't do both. Just for example, would you tell her to focus on the defensive, or would you tell her to focus on finding teammates higher up the field?
I've got to say, probably finding teammates higher up the field, because I think that's one of the things that, like, one of her most underrated qualities is her ability to actually pass the ball. She does have a phenomenal passing range on her. She's also got a great ability, and we haven't seen it enough this season, to get into the edge of the box and arrive on the edge of the box and score from the edge of the box. We haven't seen that enough this season as a team because she spent too much time doing the defensive spay, and I don't think you'll see the best of Erin Cuthbert until you have a settled midfield three, maybe with, you know, a more creative option that also is very mobile like Shankovic and a defensive midfielder. If you've got Ingle on form, then I think you can put Ingle in there, but I think you need a more mobile option. If you have, say, Gioro in behind, for example, and you're talking Cuthbert, Gioro and Shankovic, that's a very well-balanced, very dynamic midfield that offers protection while also being a goal threat. And I think that's one of Chelsea's big issues this season is still the midfield balance isn't there. Alternatively, I would also say if you had a fully fit Melanie Leupolz in that defensive role, then you also get that. But unfortunately, a fully fit Melanie Leupolz isn't going to happen this season due to, you know, factors outside the club's control. And that isn't, you know, something to beat against the player or hold a stick against the player.
So just off the back of that, then, I think if you've got Cuthbert and you're saying to her to focus on playing balls forward and helping out in the attacking third, I think to get that balance in the midfield, you need to have, so player 6 for me, there needs to be someone who's a little bit more defensive minded, someone who's going to break up the play and offer that defensive protection, which is why I think I would perhaps put maybe Ladd in over anyone else, because she's got that ability to sit back and to win the ball in her own half and then to feed it forwards, which would allow Cuthbert to play forwards and to get into higher positions and not have to track back as much, which would then help her game. So I think if it was me, I would put Cuthbert and Ladd in to get that balance. I know that's perhaps controversial because it means leaving Zellum out, but I think Zellum has a similar passing range to Cuthbert and Ladd, so she's almost like a hybrid of both, if you like. She's got like defensive ability and that attacking ability. So I think if you put her in as well as Cuthbert, you risk having both players moving up the field. And
I would add that from your scenario, you're saying Cuthbert can only do one of these two things. Whereas
she can do both, but I just think if you're whatever you're tasking her with, you then need a foil, is what I'm saying. So because you said you'd rather her going forwards, I would put if you're having Cuthbert dropping back, I'd put an attacking player in at 6, like Zellum. But I think that's what I'm saying is that's why I asked what you'd do with Cuthbert before saying, okay, I did put that player in. So yeah, I'd go Cuthbert and Ladd. But
it's interesting, isn't it? Because Zellum has actually been the one dropping the deeper out of Ladd and Zellum, but and I think Zellum's been excellent this season. She's definitely in the conversation for one of our players of the season if she carries on the way she's been playing. But Ladd, I think, has got better defensive qualities to her. And I think, like you said, I think that midfield of Zellum and Cuthbert maybe isn't as strong as a Ladd and Cuthbert partnership there. So yeah, I think I'm in agreement that Ladd would go in 6. So I think we'll go with that. Ladd and Cuthbert there. So we've got James in. So how many players we've got left? 4 to go with this squad. The left-hand side is a player or a position we've not spoken about. Now, obviously, everyone on this channel and Rob knows my admiration for obviously Wrighton. I think she's one of the best players that I've seen live and one of the best players in the WSL. However, I am going to put the Galton case forward because this season, I think she stepped up another level from last season. She had a good season last season, but again, she stepped up again this season, 6-3, or a WSL stats. But obviously, if you're going off the season, she's played well in games outside of that. What are we saying for the left-hand side? Obviously, I know, Rob, you're going to put a Chelsea case forward. But this is where I said on that left-hand side when we were talking about left-back in terms of who goes on this left-hand side ahead of them, because I think Galton this season has been phenomenal. Over to one of you to
David, do you want to offer your thoughts first, and then I'll.
Oh, do you know what? For me, it could be one or the other. They're both as good as each other. They're both good at delivering balls in the middle. They're both good at scoring goals. They're both good at making inverted runs. I honestly couldn't call it. I don't know. So you put forward your arguments for Galton and Wrighton, and maybe that'll help me make my mind up because I genuinely I don't know.
I'll be honest. I just think Wrighton all round. I think Galton has improved massively, and I think she's a very, very good winger. But I think Wrighton's an all-round better just footballer. I think she's got a better passing range. I think if you're not having Zellum in the side, you need someone to take free kicks, and Wrighton can do that. And I've noticed there's no one else in the side that I really would trust over a set piece. I don't know if Russo. I don't know if Russo's ever scored set pieces. I know Sam Kerr hasn't. I know Lauren James are okay. I know Cuthberts are okay. The idea of Millie Bright blasting a football is obviously terrifying for any defender. So, definitely she'd be there. But I just think overall, I think Wrighton is just a generally better player. And I know this is tough for you, Connor, because I know you want to. I know United bias wants to shine through, but I know you also. If I gave you a chance and said, "Do you want to swap Leah Galton for Gura Wrighton?" you would swap them.
I was going to say this is the toughest one for me because, as I said, I don't like praising opposition players. But like I said, if there's one player that I could take from any squads, it would be Wrighton. But like I said, I just can't hide my admiration for Galton this season either because she has won us games, in the way that she's played, and she has been phenomenal on that left-hand side. But I kind of agree with what you're saying, Rob, in terms of abilities away from just scoring. I think Wrighton maybe has a bit more to her in terms. I think crossing, Galton's got a brilliant crossing, and obviously a goal scoring numbers speak for itself. Wrighton maybe in terms of playing a number of positions, Wrighton could probably play in the middle as well as on the left, whereas I don't think maybe Galton could. I'm not really making a good case here for putting Galton in, am I?
Please continue.
But it's a tough one, isn't it, David? Because I think, like you said, both could go in. And I think whoever we leave out, it's the same with the Toon and Russo and Kerr argument. Whoever we leave out, there's going to be a certain number of fans that are not going to be happy. But these are the kind of caliber of players that we're talking about.
I think my argument is things like the assist against Leicester or the pass yesterday in the run-up to the Canarid goal. I don't think that Galton has those passes in her locker. And I see Wrighton do them multiple times a season, if not multiple times in a game. And that's just what that's my personal sort of view. I've said this before, do you, on Wrighton, Connor, that I think that Wrighton is one of those players that often goes under the radar in the Chelsea side because there are so many good players in there. But realistically, she's the sort of player that if Chelsea win the league this season, which they might, then she's definitely up there for PFA Player of the Year for me because she's been that consistently good, and she's been a little bit off form since Christmas, and I think still she's registered several sort of goals, I think 4 assists since Christmas. If that's a player being off form, then I think it speaks for himself.
God, David, you got the deciding say on this one, unfortunately.
I think I'm inclined to, and I promised anyone listening or watching, it is an edge by the tiniest of fractures. I'm just going to edge Wrighton ahead of Galton, purely because I just think Wrighton is. I mean, Galton is a very underrated player, and she does a lot of things that are so good on the pitch, and I don't think she gets the credit she deserves either from the media or when it comes to international selection or things like that. But Wrighton is such a special player, and you love watching her because her left foot is just like a wand. Every time she gets the ball, something special happens. Whether it's a delicious curl cross into the path of either Kerr or anyone else, or whether it's making a delivery from wider out and getting it accurate. So yeah, and as I say, I promise it is just an edge for United fans because I do like Galton, but I think Wrighton out of the two.
Yeah, I think she's captain at Norway as well now, Wrighton. So there is that as well. So yeah, it is a tough. Right, I'm going to have to fight my case for these last 3 spots. Then, so we've got 3 spots to go: the left back position, and obviously the 10 and the striker. The striker and the 10, I think, depends on who we're going to striker, to be honest. And I think that then decides the 10 because I think we've got 3, maybe 4 names for those 2 positions. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we've got Kerr, Russo, Toon, if you want to throw her in there. Kirby, are we putting in the mix as well?
Because she's not fully fit, and I don't know if she's going to be fully fit. Like, if it was a fully fit Fran Kirby, then I would be making every case for just putting Kirby in that sort of combination and Kerr and Kirby because it's such a good combination, and they're also both so good themselves. But because she's not fully fit, and again, that's also if Pernilla Harder was fully fit, I'd be putting in a very strong case by her, but just simply showing you the clips of the goals she scored against you. And the fact that she relentlessly bullies your defence, but I think that I'll make a proposition. If you put Kerr up front, I'll let you pick either Toon or Russo for the 10 because I think you can then make a strong argument for either of them in there. And I think you've made some compelling points about Toon. I personally still would go for Russo because I think she works her best not as a proper number 9. I think she's better when she has that ability to be in that withdrawn role, and that's also probably why I think James and Wrighton help more because they do like getting into the box and sort of moving on ahead of players. They make a lot of movement ahead. And also so does Sam Kerr.
Yeah, I'm finding it hard not to, even though the stats from Kerr in the WSL isn't great. I think she's close to 20, or she might even hit 20 goals overall.
She's over 20 already, and over 20 goals already, and 25 goal contributions. So.
That's what I mean. So even though her WSL numbers aren't great, as the season as a whole,
she has a knack of popping up and just getting in the right place at the right time to get her head on the ball or to turn the ball into the net. And yeah, she's having, let's say, an indifferent season in terms of overall quality, but she is still getting the goals. She's still having the impact. Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think Kerr up front and then either Toon or Russo in that 10 role. I do like when Russo does drop back into deeper areas because she can have a bigger impact on the game. And I completely agree with Rob. With James and Wrighton both getting in the box, she would have that freedom to drop back and to affect the game in different ways other than just scoring goals. So yeah, I like what Rob said. Kerr up front and then either Toon or Russo in that 10 role. Over to you, Connor.
I was going to say, in terms of playmaking abilities, though, Toon is a better playmaker, but maybe not this. Even this season, though, she has been. Her numbers don't back up, I don't think, how well she's actually played. Even though I don't think she's been great, she's not actually scored since the Arsenal away game in October, I think, for us. So it's been a long time for her scoring, and I think it's getting to her. We saw a couple of chances in the Leicester game, and she can touch. She's clearly trying to score, but yeah, obviously getting frustrated with it. But yeah, Russo or Toon in that 10. I think could we maybe move player 10 a little bit closer so it's like a a bit like that.
Like a second striker rather than an
Yeah.
That's honestly that's more what I was probably thinking it to be, because in this formation you're going to have both. You're going to have Cuthbert getting forward as well. You've got the fullbacks getting forward, like we've said, and you've got either one of Wrighton or James is getting into that sort of space. So
I think so. I think that works if you've got Kerr just a little bit further ahead. Yeah, I think that works.
We've successfully gone to a 4-2-4. This is exactly what
I was going to say. This is the one I didn't think. I kind of thought we would, because that you can't leave those attacking players out, can you? You've got to get them in the team. So that just leaves the left back. And I think, Rob, this is what you were saying earlier with a player that just stays forward. Because if you were on about Galton does track back and tracks back a lot, which obviously helps out Blundell on that side. In this team, obviously with Wrighton on that side, I mean, we've got Ladd on the left-hand side of that, but, if we're saying Cuthbert's going to be a little bit further forward as well. So are we saying it's between Carter and Blundell for this left-hand side slot, or are we throwing...
Yeah, I think now that we've sorted out who's on the wing on that side in it's Wrighton, I think you need a slightly more defensive player now. So I'm going to backtrack and go with Carter, purely because Wrighton, for me, when she's played at left wing back for Chelsea, I think she's not looked as strong defensively. I know she's grown into that role when she has played there, but I think you need that defensive presence just in case. And I think, as we said, Cuthbert's going to push further forward, so that means Ladd's going to have to stay slightly more central to protect the middle of the field. That for me means there's going to have to be a player at left back who's going to be very good at the duels.
Could we not go for Honor at left back, Laetitia right back, Carter at the middle?
Honestly, if you did that, you'd be better off just putting Badger right at left back and then putting Carter at right back. Because I think Carter at right back is a more realistic shout than putting Maya there when Maya's played minimal minutes at fullback, even though she can play fullback. And to be honest, if you're putting on as a left back, I'd say put Nim Charles in, because Nim Charles, I think, has been very good at right back this season.
Yeah.
You're opening up a can of worms here.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, whoever it is, player 4 for me needs to be someone who's good at winning defensive duels. That's it.
Are we saying?
I don't really mind who it is, as long as it is a defensive player, because I think then that offers that balance and ensures you've got that protection on the wing.
Just very quick, I'm conscious of time. We need to wrap this one up shortly. But are we saying that Blundell can't do that, or are we just saying that Carter's better at it?
That's what I'm certainly saying. I think Blundell can, but I think Carter's just a better all-round defender.
Yeah, I agree with that. Blundell can do it, but she's not the best at it out of the names that we've got in that position.
I really want to fight it, because I'm conscious it's going out on a United channel. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 names. I mean, to be fair, one side was going to have less, because obviously it's
the other thing is also you'll compare it to the defending champions as well. Like, I do think I have said this to people, I do think people are forgetting the fact that, Chelsea are the defending champions coming into this game.
And yeah, I always put games in hand down to wins as well. So in my eyes, you're on 37, because that's how
I don't do that in games in hand ever since that game against Brighton a few years ago. Every game played, maybe.
That's always how I look at it, but I'm inclined to agree, but I don't really want to. And to be fair, I'm quite happy with 5 players in. I think that shows the levels United have got to. Because I think if we were doing this time last season, I think we probably maybe have got 2 in there rather than 5. So we're creeping there. If we do this, if we'd have done this time next week after we've beaten you on Sunday, we might have got a few more in there. But yeah, we'll go with Carter on that side, and there we go. We got a United 2 there, Chelsea 2 there. It's looking. That's a strong squad. You wouldn't lose too many games with that, would you?
Yeah, I think you've got a very good balance there. I think that's the other thing as well. If you're just picking like, you're picking a realistic combined 11, that I could see that 11 playing well together. Whereas if I've seen some of your formations, Connor. Like, you have sort of 3-1-5-1 or something ludicrous just to try and fit all the attackers in.
It's certainly a tough one, but it's been a good little conversation, a good little short show for you guys to watch wherever you are watching this. This should go out in a few hours after recording this. I'll just come to each of you before we look to wrap this one up. Then, what's your score prediction for Sunday, if you've got one?
I'm going to go 2-2.
Oh.
I think Chelsea will edge it 2-1, but I think it'll be a late goal, and it wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if it was some ludicrous, controversial goal. Like, the WSL loves unnecessary drama from refereeing.
Like a small offside call that's not.
Well, yeah, that or any sort of ridiculous handball call. And I really hope, in genuine seriousness, I really hope the debate after the game is about the match rather than about, any sort of refereeing decision, because I wouldn't want to see a title, won or lost because the lines people aren't good enough.
Yeah, I agree. You hope it's a really good game and it's one that lives up to the expectations.
No, fingers crossed for that as well. Obviously, from a United point of view, we're hoping to finally get over that mental barrier. I said, if you're watching this on Thursday, the fan preview's tomorrow at 7:00, where we'll obviously talk about the game in more detail. Where can people find your social medias anyway? I know, obviously, Rob, you've been on the channel quite a few times, but obviously, David, for yourself, you want to shout out your Twitter and things like that, where people can find your work and everything else.
Yeah, my Twitter is at David Astill 21. I post links to my pieces on Twitter. I engage in lots of chat about women's football around the world on there as well. So you can find me on there, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I've got a new Substack channel as well, which has been going for about a couple of months now. So that's got a mix of free and paid content on there. So again, there's a link on my Twitter profile if you want to go and have a look. Set up a subscription. I'd love to have you on board. Yeah,
100% check that out. And Rob, if people don't already know where to find you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at RJP Journalism, but also now if you follow at @football or @fball on Twitter, you'll also now start finding my blogs from there from the next couple of weeks, which is quite exciting. So yeah, please do come and tell me why my opinions on football are wrong and why I should give up my day job.
Well, make sure you go and check that out as well, because there's obviously some brilliant stuff over there as well. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you're liking the video and subscribing, and we shall see